Now, going from today to a year from now, what's the biggest mistake most people are going to regret a year from now in commercial real estate?
This is such a cliche answer, but it's starting now. I mean, so many people are just relying on cold calling and maybe an email here and again. I want everybody to get into the mindset of building a business. Cold calling's great, but hardly scalable. You're going to still make the same amount of cold calls, right?
So you're thinking about getting into commercial real estate, or you're actively engaged in commercial real estate and looking at ways to become more effective at running your brokerage or being the amazing agent that you are. I am so excited about today's guest. We've got Joe Killinger with us. He's closed over $1 billion in commercial real estate. That's over 6,500 assets being sold. He's got some key specializations that we're going to talk about today. He spent 3 decades building brokerages, managing agents, and spotting market shifts. And as we know right now, there's some big shifts happening. He's the co-founder of Commercial Brokers International and the brains behind Pono Asset Management. And he is the real deal. So guys, if you're looking for learning anything about commercial real estate, if this is something that's interesting for you, you're like, man, I just need to get that new edge. Or if you're in the industry and you're starting to see some fumbles happening in the industry and you're trying to figure out how do I get things going, or you're a super performer and want to 10x that growth, Joe's the man to hit it for you. So Joe, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on, Steve, and thank you for that introduction.
Now, you've closed over $1 billion in deals.
Right.
And when you're closing $1 billion of deals, you deal with obviously a lot of other agents out there. And you've dealt with great agents and you've dealt with agents that probably need more training. Why, when we look at these agents that need more training, why do they not get it?
It's not so much the agent's fault, it's the brokerage's fault. Now, I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday. The agents have the responsibility of talking to the brokerage. What kind of training do you do? What kind of mentoring do you offer? What kind of support do you give? That is when you're out there interviewing, you want to make sure you're asking those questions and then follow up, call other people in the company. But as a brokerage, this is what just baffles my mind. You know, it kills me that there's so many brokerages will bring a new broker on. They say, here, we're going to train you. And then they have a class once or twice a week and very little training then. So, I mean, I don't know any other industry that would hire somebody and say, hey, here you go. Here's your phone. Here's your login. Good luck. I mean, if you're an airplane pilot, they're not going to give you the keys and say, okay, we'll see you later. But that's essentially what commercial real estate brokerage has been doing over the years. Now, there's some companies that do great training. We, as an industry, and somebody that is a broker of a brokerage company, have the responsibility to really train these young people, to mentor them, and to give them the support that they need. Because when you get that, what you're going to get is somebody that's going to close leads faster. They're going to stay in the business because NAR did a report. 87% of brokers in the first 5 years are out of the business.
Yep.
Percent. That's
Yep.
huge. So these guys, they're going to stick around because they're actually making money. They're going to close more deals. They're going to make more money. So I don't understand why we don't see training out there. And I think it's starting to evolve. I think people are seeing the ability to train these people. And I think AI is helping it a lot. There's a lot of online training modules that are helping. As a brokerage, you also have to step back because not everybody learns the same. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. So we have a commercial brokerage company here in Los Angeles. 20 some agents. We train every morning at 8:30 in the morning for 45 minutes. We do a 15-minute kind of an overview of how's the week going, what's working for you, what's not working for you, what can we help you get better at doing if it's not working for you. And we're seeing such a big turnaround. And it's just giving these young people the opportunity to really get out there and produce. And if you do more training, the quicker they're going to make more money. You as a brokerage, you want your agents to make money. So I don't know. We're figuring
Yeah,
it out.
and it's interesting because I mean I coach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We've got MMA fighters, we've got Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, we've got Muay Thai fighters in our gym. And if you told one of them like, hey, by the way, you just don't need to train anymore. You can just go in and go to that tournament and win because you trained 6 years ago on that one course. Like, it's lunacy. Like, nobody would ever do that. When you have a fight coming up, I mean, you're in camp. And when you're in camp, you're going to do the hard things. Why does that not translate into commercial real estate? That sort of really focus on training as a key pillar of success.
I think it does for the good companies. You got to remember that a lot of companies, they will bring you in, they'll put you in one asset class, and that's all you're going to learn. And you're going to be put as a junior. You're going to do all the cold calling. You're going to do all the work. And the senior is going to get half your commission, and the company's going to get the other half or half of it. And you're going to get this little stipend for doing all this work. So they don't really want to train you that hard because you're a moneymaker for that senior and that company. And so that's why it's so important for you as a new person to really understand what you're getting yourself into. And there are companies that really want to train you. They're looking long term. And so they're giving you the training, they're giving you the opportunities to get out there and learn the marketplace. And there's not enough of them right now. So as somebody that's new, you got to start asking the right questions before you get hired.
So do you think it's one of those situations where, I mean, I have a mortgage brokerage as well, and you can certainly see this happen in that, as well as, any other, even residential real estate will suffer from this, to a degree, where, you get that agent, you spend a year taking them from zero to hero, and then they learn so much, and they then, decide that your chunk, that whatever you charge them to manage them is too much, and they don't see any value in you anymore, and they set up shop next door.
Yep.
And now you've just trained your competition. And do you think that that's kind of what's resonating in their mind, rather than thinking with abundance that they're actually putting another professional in the industry?
I don't know that that's what they're thinking. I think we're so starved to get, I mean, the average age of a commercial real estate broker is 50, I've heard different numbers, 55 to 62, right? That's the average. Yeah. So as far as an industry, we need to get
Sorry, you
younger
just said
people in it.
something really important. The the average age of a commercial real estate broker is 55 to.
Somewhere there, yeah.
So if somebody was young and full of energy and ready to kick it up a notch, the opportunity to start setting their career path in commercial real estate is super exciting,
I've
because
got an
there's a
office full of them.
transition.
I've got an office
Yeah.
full of them. They show up at class every morning, 5 days a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays. I've got one guy that started in September. He's done 4 deals already. And he's just listening to us and doing what it takes. You know, and I want to go back to what I was talking about before is we have to understand not everybody wants to learn the same, right? So we were just having our CEO talk and, everybody's sitting there writing notes. Not everybody learns that way. Some people are very visual, and it took us longer than I'd like to admit to figure this out. But you have to really learn how to train people too. But to go back to it, yes, there is an opportunity for young people to get into this industry right now and create a big business. And so you can build a company within an agency. You can go out and be a whatever you want to do. The opportunity is there. And content creation, they were born with these things in their hands. They know how to use them to create content. They can obviously cold call. They can write blogs. You put all that out there, focus on long-term and short-term marketing and, evergreen marketing and content creation and inbound calls, outbound calls. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not once you get the structure in place.
Yeah, I think everything is a lot. I mean, getting into a ring, getting punched in the face, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Just like picking up the phone and having somebody tell you, never call me again, is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be a lot. And I think I agree that systems and models will allow you to handle that so much more effectively. But the opportunity, like, that is so super interesting. Why do you think when agents, when people get into real estate, the first thing they do is, actually, let me rephrase that. Why do you think more agents lean towards residential real estate than commercial?
It's easier. So I've done both. It's a lot easier. I can learn about homes in a marketplace and homes and condos in a marketplace. Now, if I'm in commercial, I've got to learn an asset class cap rates, everything. Now if you're going to try and do more than one asset class, then you got to learn more than one. And so you got to take it all in. And for investors, completely different questions than it is for a tenant. So it's a lot more involved, and it gets intimidating.
Yeah.
Your
It's
first
also,
couple of weeks in commercial real estate is pretty intimidating.
I could see that. You walk into that one industrial, plant and you just think, huh,
Yeah.
now I got to learn something.
Yeah. Yeah. Ceiling heights, power, door heights, loading docks. It gets to be a lot.
Yep.
So I think that scares a lot of people away. We've had a couple of good residential agents that were able to make the transition into commercial. They were doing more multifamily before, and that's what they stuck with, but they never got into commercial real estate. They stuck with multifamily because it's a different beast. And when you get a call from a residential agent that's doing a commercial deal, your heart stops. You're like, oh no, I'm going to do all this work, And on Twitter, you'll see people passing those notes back. Resi-mercial agent contacted me today about a client. Wish me luck.
Yep. Yep. No, I can definitely see that. I mean, as being part of Keller Williams, I mean, we have the Keller Williams residential side, then we've got the Keller Williams commercial, and that certainly is a problem for the commercial agents. Now, if the commercial is tried, tested, and true and only commercial, that makes a big difference. But if they're a resi-mercial, they're kind of playing in both camps.
Yeah. You can't
It's
be everything to everybody, or you'll be
100%
nothing to
agree with that.
anybody.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Focus
right.
on what helps you grow your business. Pick an asset class, pick a market, become the leader in that marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I look to somebody like Grant Cardone, and Grant Cardone, he's done a great job about building his sales organization. But he didn't start saying, I'm going to train insurance agents, real estate agents, car salesmen, people who sell mass spectrometers. And he didn't do that. He said, I'm just going to focus on the car industry because that's what I know. And then I'm going to really become the authority in that space. And once I've really created some inertia, and some size and scale, then I can start to absorb other ones. But at the beginning bit is I'm going to make the one thing.
Yeah,
And I think
you've got
that's
to
really,
start with focus. And, it's easy, especially now. I'll give you an example. So we take our retail agents. Let's say it's a retail agent, Santa Monica. I want you, but you come on board with Commercial Brokers International. We hire you. We're not going to put you on the phones for the first 2 weeks. Obviously, you're going to class every morning on the Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I'm going to have you on CoStart every day. Just study the market. And then after week 1, I'm going to sit down and test you going, okay, what's available right now? What's the average price per square foot? Parking, what's that look like? Availability, days on market, all that. If you can't answer that, I'm like, okay, we'll see you next week. Let's do this again. Until they get that down and can tell me somebody that's coming into their market or going out, I want them to know, read all the local publications, understand what's going on in the marketplace. Until they know all of that, they're not on the phones. And
yep,
the reason being, Steve, is because you're not going to get frustrated. You're going to end up quitting because you don't know the market. You're having conversations. You don't know what to say. Now, if you know everything going on in the marketplace and people are coming in and out of that market, when you get somebody on the phone, now you've got something to talk about. You can have a conversation with, oh yeah, this is 2 doors down from you is available. And it's X amount of square feet. It's this size. There's this parking. Here's the concessions that this company, or this landlord is offering. All of that. Now you're having a real conversation that can lead you somewhere. If you're cold calling and just saying, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling or leasing real estate? And they say yes or no and hanging up. How do you build a business like that? And that's what we're getting away from. And it can't be quick enough.
yeah. I think the idea of, are you thinking about buying or selling, and hey, a referral is the greatest compliment.
Yeah.
That's going by the way of the dodo in any space. I think we've got a very educated buyer in all aspects of doing business, and you have to recognize that, and you really have to come out with value. I mean, right now, like we look at the global CRE market right now, and there's potential systemic vulnerabilities in all of it right now. There's a lot of shifts that are happening. When you take an agent that's used that approach before, and now they're looking at the market now, how should they be preparing themselves, or as the broker, how should you be preparing your teams for any of the turbulences that's happening or is about to happen, instead of just talking about script?
Right. Yeah. So if you want to be preparing your team for the future, first of all, there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of AI coming. You've got to be in the marketplace and you've got to understand what's coming. every morning I tell all of our senior leaders, I want you to make sure you're reading at least 5 real estate publications for your marketplace. And obviously CoStar News is a big one. CoStar News, their plain vanilla show, depending on what asset class, globestreet.com, BizNow, on and on. You just want to make sure you're completely informed. And then making sure that your team understands what's going on in their marketplace. Now, it depends on how you set your team up too. Are you going to set your team up as like, okay, we're just going to do multifamily in Santa Monica, build my team that way? Or are you going to build your team like, okay, I'm going to do multifamily. I want you to do retail. I want you to do industrial. So really, there's a lot to that question. I know it seems, but there's a lot to it because it just depends on how you're going to set your team up. I'm going to be doing just multifamily in an area. You want to make sure they know everything going on. You want to make sure there's 100 and some cold calls a day that are going out per agent, depending on your team, and block it off, get those cold calling. But then the key is the analytics. Every day, look at those analytics. How many calls went out? How many hits did you get? Why are the hits so low today? Did you have long conversations? And that's another thing a lot of people don't think about is when you see somebody new, the conversations are a few seconds, right? But as they get experience, the length of those conversations stretches out because they're actually having conversations about what's going. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
why we also monitor that.
Yeah, that's really important. I had Chaz on from Call Tools a while ago where he was talking all about how it's really important to track number of calls, but more importantly, time on task, which is how long are you really talking to people? And that kind of can give you, I mean, in MMA, it's like time on the mats, like how long
Yeah.
are you spending time on task?
Yep.
And I think that makes a big difference. When you look at training, and I'm going to put you early on in your career, so we're going to throw it back a few decades probably. And I want to look back and I say, what's a training mistake that you made early that nearly cost you or did cost you?
I already talked about it, and that was not understanding that not everybody learns the same. Two actually. So not everybody learns the same. We had agents that I just am like, why don't they get it? They're not stupid. I'm like, what are they not understanding? And then one day I did this visual with a whiteboard, and guess who was talking the most? Yeah, we could do this. And I'm like, wait a second. This has been a mistake I've made. And so people were getting frustrated because they just didn't get it. And so we picked up like, okay, we need to make our classes more interactive. And what a difference that made. Plus, it forces them to listen, right? And so when you say, hey, Steve, what about, yeah, so they have to be listening. And so that was a big one, is getting it more interactive, not just have a talking head at the class. That, and then when we were doing in the middle of COVID, we would do it from 12 to, we would do a Zoom class with all of our agents, just so they'd have something to do. Really, we just sit there and watch all of our hair grow, but it was something. Classes over Zoom, we might as well. I mean, it passed time for us, I guess. But those did not work for us.
I think the modality has to speak to the way that somebody can absorb information.
Yeah.
And when you're
Exactly.
looking at, I had a guy who we did a podcast on talking specifically about being a speaker and the idea of, either in person or hybrid or just Zoom. And you have to have a different way of interfacing because I do agree. What actually has to happen is you have to do checkpoints. When it's in person, you can maybe go 8 minutes, I think is what he was saying. But when you're online, it has to be almost every 2 minutes. Checkpoints, like making them take action almost every 2 minutes or you'll lose them.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that you approach it, you have to understand the modality of training that's required based on the platform that you're using. And I think that was a really interesting concept. Now, I know we talk about training and I want to talk a little bit about culture as well, because I think you talk a little bit about the idea about the sink or swim culture is definitely outdated. What replaces that?
Openness, where people aren't afraid to come and ask questions. That's the thing that there's still companies. We did a recruiting meeting the other day, and this kid he's just frustrated. He has to do 200 calls a day. If he doesn't get 200 calls a day, then he's got to stay after and you know keep pushing, and that's every day. And so I said, okay, well, how's that working for you productivity wise? It's because you got to look at everybody should be doing productivity analytics see what's working, what's not. And almost nobody does. And productivity analysis, you highly recommend it. So what we try and do is create a culture where nobody's afraid to come and ask questions. And I mean, not just to George and myself, the owners of the company, but to the more senior agents. Knock on the door, ask a question, because everybody in our office is where that new person was. We understand what you're going through. And so that culture is very key, and it's intimidating. If you're afraid to go and talk to somebody and you're just going to get frustrated, you're just going to quit. You're going to quit the industry. And so, yeah, it's creating that culture where people are not afraid to come and ask you, hey, what's going on here?
Yep. And I think further to that, I think one of the things you talk a little bit about is, I mean, we all know hard work matters. I mean, when we're in the gym and, if you're not pushing your physical body to the limit, at some point, you're never going to see that growth, that expansion that can happen. And it might be pushing your mind, pushing your body, whatever it is, you need to challenge yourself. You need to hustle, right? But I think, actually, I won't say this. I want your opinion on this. Do you think the idea of that hustle porn has gone too far? That people are more focusing on the hustle than on what they might need to focus on?
Absolutely. I mean, people, do you know who Gary Vee is?
Hmm?
So he was years ago touting, if you're young, now's the time to make it. 5 hours sleep a night's plenty. Now he's like, now peace of mind, make sure you're working your out, getting your sleep. Yeah, it comes down to productivity. If you need 20 hours a day to be productive, then you're not doing it right. There's so many systems in place right now. Daily structure is the key. If you're retail, you're not calling till 10 o'clock in the morning. So you got a couple hours in the morning to set everything up, get your emails out, and then cold call, depending on where you're at in your career, right? 10, you start calling till whatever time. If you've been doing it for 10 years, you're probably not doing a whole lot of cold calling, but hopefully you still do. Yeah, it's the hustle culture. It doesn't need to be. It's just you need structure. You need a company that's going to give you the support and an open door to give you the answers to get you going. And that all comes with, you've got to have the training to really understand all of that. What's the right questions to be asking?
Yeah, I think you said once, you said persistence, yes, but with structure.
Yeah, you've got to have the structure. You're just, I was talking to an agent the other day, and here's another big thing that drives me nuts with newer agents. They always talk to the other newer agents. They take advice from them. Go get advice from people that are where you want to be, and then take their advice. Somebody in the same level as you, don't take their advice because they don't really know what's going to work and what's not. Go talk to somebody that's been through it. And, I was talking to an agent the other day. She was in residential, and she goes, I'm just so over this industry. She goes, I feel I'm just tired. I'm tired of chasing my tail. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing? She goes, well, I do a little bit of cold calling. I hold some open houses. And I'm like, okay, do you have a website? Well, no. So you don't have a blog either? Okay. Maybe you need to increase your cold calls. What kind of content do you put out on social media? And it's pretty homes, nothing that really brought value. So your marketing needs to really bring value. And the way I get them to try to understand that is like, listen, I want you to, in commercial, if you are targeting retail tenants, what does that retail tenant want to know from you? What information is valuable to them? That's the content you want to create. It's really that simple. Talk about that asset class, talk about that market, talk about you a little bit in that marketplace. But it can be frustrating if you're not in alignment with everything that you should be doing. And that's going to come from talking to the senior people.
Do you think some of that would be sort of the systemic problem of fully commissioned people who have a hand to mouth mindset rather than like having a longer lens to what they need to do? And by that, I mean, a lot of people talk about a 30, 60, 90-day plan instead of a 30, 60, 90-month plan.
Right.
Do you think that's something that people need to rethink?
I think the 100% commission is more of a motivator. You usually, and this is with the good agents, our industry with a heavy turnover, you get so many people that are just, they get into this industry thinking, I'm going to do it better than the people that are doing it right now. Well, I want to tell you, there's a lot of competition and some of it's very good, but it's probably 80% of the business is done by 15% of the brokers. It used to be 90-10. 90% of the business is done by 10% of brokers, but I think it's expanded down a little bit. But I think you've got to come into this industry with a mindset of listening and understanding and having a long-term plan. If you don't have a long-term plan and you don't have money in savings, you're going to eat through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think maybe what you're saying is it something where it's the difference between somebody who's hungry
Yep.
and somebody who's starving?
Yeah. I've found that, we had a couple people that really didn't need a lot of money and they just they ended up not making it. They weren't motivated. They weren't willing to do the work. At 5 o'clock, they were after our 5:55 to 5:15 class, they were gone. They weren't going to work the evenings. They weren't going to work the weekends. Your competition is. The good competition is, especially in the beginning. And so if you think you're going to outsmart them, chances are pretty slim. I don't know that you can outwork them, but consistency is what's going to get you ahead. You've got to get out there and be consistent with your content creation, with your writing a blog, writing an article. And, I'm big on proof stacking right now. I don't know if you've ever talked about that, but
On
proof
which, sorry?
stacking, it's great for, let's say you get a big client, get a client, they come in, and you tell the story of how the whole process went from this is how they contacted me. This is how we started working together. This is how we decided on the right property. We did the showings. We closed the deal. And now my relationship with them is it shows that you did a deal in that marketplace and that you have a history in doing that in that asset class in that marketplace. And that just stays on the internet forever. So when people start searching your name, that's also a very good tip to really be for your market.
Yeah, that's huge. I think some people will say social proofing, but I think the idea 100% is if somebody can see the journey that somebody else has had, it definitely gives them the confidence that you can help them with their journey as well.
Yeah, and
Is
that you help them go
super.
through it. That you as an
Yep.
agent help them go through it.
Yep. Difference between teaching and leading in a brokerage. What's the difference?
That's a very good question. Nobody's ever asked before. Leading is, well, you need to, in brokerage, you better lead by example. You better be the lead plow horse doing the work and letting them see your efforts. Training is just telling them this is what you need to do. And, this is how I did it. This is what worked for me. That's great, but they're going to get a lot more if you lead them and show them like, listen, come with me. I'm going to go on a showing. Come with me. I'm going to go on a pitch. Come with me. I'm going to go, it's inspections today. I want you to hear what we do. And leading that way, you're going to get longevity in your talent.
So teaching might be the telling and leading would be the showing. So don't tell me, show me.
Yeah. And a combination of those two, phew, you're going to have a powerhouse company.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Now, we definitely see this in sports where, the guy joins the football team or the guy joins, the rugby team, and man, that person can run the fastest, just the strongest, can break tackles like nobody's business, but doesn't show up to practice, doesn't, put the effort in, always has a reason, you know, for those maybe things not showing up. Have you ever had to fire somebody who was super talented, but completely uncoachable?
Yeah. More than you think. I've had one guy goes, "You're old. You don't understand how we do it now." And I'm like, okay, okay. I let him sit for a while and he just never made any money because he was doing what he wanted to do, not what worked. And, you'll get
That right there, say that one more time because that is really super important what you just said.
I don't know which part,
I think what you said is you said he was doing what he
what
wanted
he
to
wanted to
do.
do, not what worked. Yeah. You get that a
Yeah.
lot,
Just
and
say
I
it one
mean,
more time.
he was doing what he wanted to do, not what worked. And he just thought pretty pictures and he would spend a half hour on a post making sure it was perfect. I'm like, make sure it's valuable to your followers and move on. This does not take, and just one thing after another. His pitches were so far off. And I'm like, dude, you're never going to get anybody to talk to you. you're almost talking down, and just one thing after another. And I just finally, as a leader, sometimes I mean, we just lost an agent here recently because he wanted to start cutting commission because I'm in the marketplace. I have to cut commissions. I'm like, oh, we don't cut commissions. And he goes, but I've got these deals that are in. He goes, I said, but we don't cut commissions. And I ended up losing him. You've got to understand your worth. you know, Cutting commissions isn't a way to do it. And it's tough. It's tough when you lose people because as a brokerage, like we were talking about before, it costs me a lot to bring an agent in because in commercial real estate, we give all these tools to these agents and it costs us thousands of dollars a month. And when we lose one, that's a loss for us. So I'm investing in you. Now I know they're investing too because they've got a car, they've got rent, they got all that, but I'm investing thousands of dollars into each new agent or each agent every month. And so as a business, I think I look at it as with each agent, I look at it as a partnership because I'm investing heavily in you. I need to get a return. How can I best get a return? Well, that's giving you the right tools, giving you the right training, giving you the mentoring, and giving the leadership that you deserve. And then when you lose somebody, it's painful.
It definitely is. Totally it is. Recent experience, I can definitely tell you. Now, you did grow your brokerage pretty fast at one point, and you almost blew it up.
Yeah.
What happened?
Too many people that, we were kind of young and dumb is what we were. We were just kind of putting bodies in chairs that said they could do the work. We'd do an interview like, oh yeah, I like this person. Their history looks good. Yeah, let's bring them on. And then you'd get, half your agents in your office were just not producing. And there was always, the leads aren't good. It was always an excuse. There was always something. And so that's why I caution brokerages, if you do 2 or 3 interviews with somebody, really get to know them, really make sure they understand your company. Make sure if it's somebody new, you know, they understand your training, your mentoring, and your support before you even offer a contract. And if it's somebody that's experienced, that's tough in our industry to recruit people that are experienced because, they expect to be compensated for coming over. And so you need to have a plan in place and then stick with it and don't be wishy-washy on it either. Make sure you're very strict on how you do it and find the right people. Find the right people. It's got to start from your company culture. It's got to be top of mind. You want to make sure that you have everything in place and then fill in the agents according to your long-term plan.
When you look at the people coming over, when you said they need to be compensated to come over,
Yep.
what does that look like? What do you see as an industry norm on that?
Well, there's some companies that are paying some of these bigger brokers a lot of money up front as soon as they sign, but then they're putting in a longer term contract. There's some companies that'll say, well, I'll give you 2 free deals over the next 2 years. It just it depends on the agent and their production. But some just want cash up front. Some are willing to prove that they can do deals and they can take a free deal. Like the 3rd and 7th deal are free, 100% commission that the agent keeps. So that kind of stuff is always, maybe you're going to have to offer them tools. They might request tools that you have to purchase for that agent. So you have to before you start recruiting, we learned the hard way was really have that plan in place. You're building a business, and that's what everybody thinks real estate agent is go in, just do deals. Well, you're building a business and you need to be in that mindset. I'm building a business. Now, if you have a plan for having a team later, then day one, you need to be building for that team. You need to make sure all your systems are in place that will allow you to include somebody else 2-3 years down the road, because there's nothing worse than 2-3 years down the road going, oh, I got to redo all my systems because now I have a junior or an assistant. And so you want to start now and build that team, build that business. You want to look at it as building a business.
And when you look at that and you're building a business, you're formulating your team, what are the key elements that need to be included so that you don't have to babysit that?
Your CRM needs to be first and foremost. It needs to be set up where if you're going to bring in a team, that they can have the right access to it and they can have all the information. That's one thing in our industry. How few people actually use a CRM, and a good one. They use something that is easy. Now you want to really, and you can go on the Jill Killinger website, and there's different CRMs on there that you can pick from, and use. They're highly recommended from other commercial real estate agents. But
Mhm.
making sure that CRM from day one is filled out in its entirety. Phone number, contact information, last conversation, when you're going to call them back again. And there's all these systems in place now to remind you. And because you don't have to use pen and paper. When I started, there was no CRM. It was Excel spreadsheet. I had to write everything down. I can barely read my own damn handwriting, so that was tough. But it's your base for your business is that CRM, and that's got to be set up. And every day you get a new contact, make sure you take the time. If you're going to close out your day, go in there and fill all that information out from the day, or do it as you're I like to see people do it as they're going through the day, just taking a few minutes to really fill it out, because that's the basis for that's where you're going to build everything on.
Yeah, I think, when you're valuing a business for sale or for any finance or anything like that, and you're trying to see what this business is worth, systems is the first thing that gets looked at. Is this a business that's built around a hero mentality, or is it built around a system and a model? And the hero mentality is that's really being built on creativity, not on systems. And creativity is not a stable base for any business.
It changes it. This, I look at the way this business has changed in the last few years. It used to be when I started in the industry, the brokers controlled all the information, right? Because there was no CoStar, there was no nothing for commercial real estate. Just each brokerage had their own list. So we controlled the information, so it was a lot easier to do deals. And now all the tenants and landlords all have access to this information now, so they're very informed. And I think with everything the way it's coming, it's going to evolve even faster now. So I just think as a younger generation, there's such a huge opportunity to really get in this business and blow it up. As a matter of fact, I put on the joekillinger.co, I put a free pamphlet. It's a booklet, and it's your first 90 days in commercial real estate. And because that is the most critical part of your career. That first 90 days, you need to start building everything. Get that CRM in place. Get your team. Get your all your documents in place. All your templates in place, and make sure everything's in place so it can start free flowing as you're going.
Oh, you talk about blowing up, so it fits right into my next question. There's about It's been quoted to say there's about $350 billion in dry powder just sitting on the sidelines for commercial real estate. What should smart brokers and agents be doing right now to prepare for that?
First of all, find out who's got the money. You got to find out who, because it's dispersed out to a lot of people. And then you got to be in your marketplace, because if you go chasing deals outside of your marketplace, then you're just chasing your tail. I cannot talk. So I was talking to an agent the other day, and he's doing deals all around the country, and he's struggling. And I said, well, why do you think that is? He goes, I don't know. I've got these great listings. I'm like, yeah, but you're all around the country. You don't have a base for anything. I said, pick your market, know everything going on, and then when this money starts coming out, then you can reach out, because hopefully with all the information, you're becoming the king or queen of that marketplace. You know what's going to pocket listing or what's actively on the market. Now you call those companies that have all that dry powder and say, listen, I've got all these properties in my market that are available. Some of them I have as pockets, some of them other brokers have, but I want to get them to you because we'd love to have you in this marketplace. But you can't spread yourself out too thin, because if a real estate investment trust says, hey, we've got 10 billion to spend, and you're going to think you think as a solopreneur that you're going to call them up and say, hey, I'm going to broker all those deals for you. No, you're not. It's not going to happen. you know, Focus on your marketplace and just be the best and make the money come to you. And you want to get people coming to you. Start putting content out about what's going on in that marketplace. Start writing blogs. If you go on LinkedIn, it says write article. Start posting there every week. Write something about your marketplace. Talk about deals that are happening in your marketplace. And then when the big real estate investment trust Googles this marketplace, look who's going to be there with all this information that's there. And then they're going to call you.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes total sense. That's why we podcast, is to
Bigger
really get a
reach.
lot of great content out and share. Now, asset classes, we've talked about multifamily, industrial, retail, office. What asset classes should people be watching right now, and where do you think the capital is going to surge towards once it's moving at a high pace?
I think office is, it's kind of have a resurgence right now. And so this is a question I really have is for most brokers that are in office is, you know, how is AI going to affect office? I think it's going to have a big impact. So I would be very, very careful with office. And obviously it's going to be specific to, there's going to be power needs. There's going to be all kinds of stuff but you got to really think, you got to be careful with office and really know. And you've got to think about multifamily, depends on where you're at again. A lot of inventory hitting the market. Rents are stabilized, some dipping in some areas. I'd be very careful there, especially, Texas and the Midwest. I more look at it as what asset class do you like or do you understand? And what area do you like and understand? Because you want to start investing in an area that because real estate investing is very local. If I'm in a high rise in Brentwood, California right now, if you take this building and you move it down just south of here, a half mile, it's a completely different asset. Or if I move it to near the beach in Santa Monica, completely different asset, different pricing, different return, different tenant base. So it's very local. So I always recommend, be understanding your market first. And then, but as far as asset class, I love multifamily. Where we're looking right now, we're raising a fund. We're going to buy some single tenant net lease deals. The first fund is going to be very stabilized. It's just, pretty good because single tenant net lease deals are the most liquid of all deals out there. So,
So
or
let's
triple
talk a
net.
little bit about single tenant net lease for
Yeah.
those who are new in the industry to kind of what is that? So we
Triple
can give
net.
a
Yeah, it's triple net. Chase banks, Del Tacos, fast food, typically, pharmaceutical companies, CVS, Walgreens, not so much Rite
so if
Aid
I was
anymore.
going to see one of those on the street, what would that look like? So it'd be a Walgreens building.
Yeah,
It's kind of
the
on the corner
Walgreens is
lot.
an out, could be an outlot to a Home Depot or something like that, or it could be just standalone on the street. And that you really want to be careful. You want to make sure you're talking to the right broker because you want to make sure that, you need to understand the lease. You need to understand who signed the lease. Is it a franchisee? Is it corporate? If it's a franchisee, how many units does that franchisee own? If they own 2 or 3 other locations only, then that cap rate better be strong. But if they own a few hundred, that's a different deal. Now, if it's corporate owned, those are pretty stabilized assets. But you want to make sure there's good foot traffic, if there's a drive through, if the drive by traffic is high, what's in the area, schools, churches, synagogue, whatever it is, make sure all that's there. Um, and signalized intersection is ideal or non-signalized intersection. Just it's good to be on a corner. And that's really what we're focusing on right now is single tenant net lease or triple net deals right now. We're going to start buying a few more. We have some in Texas right now, Allen, Texas, and Dallas, Texas. And so we really look like Allen, Texas is one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. And then the area we're in Dallas is an up and coming area and it's evolving pretty quickly just over the last couple of years. We bought this building, it was a Chase Bank 4 years ago. And since then, Home Depot is there, IKEA is there, a bunch of big box, bunch of new development right behind us. So it's gone dark. The Chase Bank is no longer there, but they're still paying the rent for the next 5 years. But we're going to replace them with either a new chicken concept or a gas station because we got a little over an acre right there. So we got plenty of leeway with land to figure out what we want to do. And then we'll re-tenant it. And so, but those are higher risk deals. You want the stabilized assets, the return isn't near as high. And again, it depends on location. If it's in California, it's one price. If it's in Texas, Florida, and Nebraska, completely different. But it's just a little bit more of a liquid asset.
Now, going from today to a year from now, what's the biggest mistake most people are going to regret a year from now in commercial real estate?
This is such a cliche answer, but it's starting now. I mean, so many people are just relying on cold calling and maybe an email here and again. I want everybody to get into the mindset of building a business. Cold calling's great, but hardly scalable. You're going to still make the same amount of cold calls, right? So do the cold calls. Do an email every 17 to 19 days to stay in front of people because I can't say how often we've had one of our agents go, do you believe my old client just went with another broker on a deal? I said, well, when's the last time you reached out to them? Okay, there's your problem. Stay in front of people. Make sure you're creating content and putting it out. Have 3 pillars to put it out on your social media. It can be either about the asset class, about the market, and a little bit about about yourself. Make sure people can get to know you. Show what you like to do. If you like to surf, if you like to ski, snowboard, whatever it is, let them get to know you. And if they find you relatable, they're going to start watching more of your stuff. Make sure if you have a website, you're putting a blog on there. A blog will drive 55% more people to your website. You want to make sure all of this is happening. So start building your business right now. In a year, you're going to thank me. You're going to say, I was watching Steve's podcast and Joe was on there. God damn, I learned a lot.
Oh, that's what we're hoping for. That's why we do that.
Yes, it's really, it's not hard. It's just, you've got to get into the mindset of you're not just a sales agent. You own your own business that you're building.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about simple metrics, massive moves. Why do most agents misread metrics, market data, even when it's just sitting staring at them in the face?
Because they have a preconceived idea of what they want it to say. You've got to actually read it for the reality. But I was looking at a multifamily report the other day, and I'm sitting there, and it didn't look good in the Midwest or in the Dallas area. And I'm like, there's so much inventory coming on the market. And their mentality was, wow, what a good time to be buying. I'm like, what? No, not a good time to be buying. Rents are they're stabilizing, coming down. And I said, a year or so from now, maybe, but you've got to watch it. You got to watch it and understand. You've got to study it. And this industry is evolving all the time. You could have something that, if you're doing multifamily in an area and all of a sudden the military base a mile down closes, you got a problem. So what are you going to do with that asset now? So it's being aware of what's going on in the marketplace and reading the analytics and understanding the stats for what they really are, not what you want them to be.
And when you look at the data points, what's some data point that you look in strategically into a market that you check that you feel a lot of other people ignore?
I don't look at one typically, because if you look at one, I think you're ignoring too many other key factors, because they all
Just one of
feed
the
in.
many, but one that I'm not saying that this is the best one. This is just the one that most people ignore.
A lot of them are just focused on cap rate, but I want to see the stats that show me what's going on in the area. What's going on. If I'm looking at a property, I want to see how traffic count has gone up, and this goes for multifamily or commercial. Well, not so much industrial, but multifamily and commercial. We don't do a lot of industrial investments. We do brokerage, but we don't do investments. I want to see what's happening in that community, and those stats, walk score, traffic count, that's all important. And here's one thing, I just got reminded of it last night, was there was the guy was posting about a restaurant deal, and there was a median. And most people don't think about if there's a median with no way to turn in, but the traffic count is high. You're only getting one side of that traffic count, one side of the street.
Because of the median, yeah.
Yeah, the median keeps them from coming. So it's just so important to understand those analytics. And then another one is boots on the ground. Get out there and take a look at these properties. And you know how few investors typically do that? It's almost every time that you go out there and start talking to people, the numbers that you're going to get going to probably be a little bit different than the broker sitting in their office.
Yeah. Now, when you think about commercial real estate, what's one thing that keeps you up at night?
On the brokerage side, it's a dream than anything, more than a nightmare. But it's how easy it is to really build the business. I sit and think about every night, and I'm so proud of some of our agents here. We got one agent, she's been in the business for not even 4 years, and she's going to do her $400,000 this year. And I think about what can the other agents be doing better, and what can they be doing? And it's about execution is really what I'm thinking about. How can we be executing better? Actually, it's a dream and a nightmare, because sometimes we just could be executing better. So that's really what I'm thinking about, is executing on what we're doing. And that goes for investing side too.
Now, after over $1 billion worth of deals, over $6,500 in assets transacted, or 6,500 units in transactions, what do you still struggle with today?
A lot, actually. I'm an A-type personality that's a Leo. There's A lot of it, I think, is made up, to be honest with you, in my own head. But, I just want to grow our companies. And that for me is, how do I grow it? Finding the right people to grow it with. That's the hard part. It's really hard to find the right people.
The who.
And boy, when you do, life is so much easier because there's people that can really take the load off you. And if you are bringing an assistant in or something like that, is it somebody that really enhances your experience every day? Are they going to be able to take the load off you? And can you delegate to them?
The main thing is number one struggle, which I think a lot of organizations, respective for being in real estate or not, it's really finding that who. That person's going to be that empire builder for you, and that you can build something magical together.
Yeah. It's really,
Yeah.
it's critical, and it's
Yeah.
worth the wait. Be patient. Just don't take the first person.
That's also a big fault that a lot of people have, but
Yeah,
that's a
because
whole
we as
area.
salespeople, we just want to go, go, go. I got to get back on the phones. I got to get back to. Okay, yeah, you'll do. Let's get you going, and that's not the way to do it.
Butts in a seat. Butts in a seat.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
The if there could be one thing, only one thing that people would learn from you around the mindset to be successful in commercial real estate,
Patience, well, two actually. Patience, yet persistence.
you got to pick one.
Okay, patience. We'll go with patience because it's not going to happen fast, and you've got to be thinking about how can I execute on this better, and what can I do next. So, and that you've got to take that time back, a little downtime, and really reflecting on what's working, what's not. That's going to take time.
The one thing that, I mean, because it's my show, I can say a couple things. The couple things that I've definitely picked off from you is number one, yeah, that patience thing. It's not going to be something that's going to happen in the first week, the first month. Maybe the first year you might have some good success, but the idea is to have that lens to think bigger than just that next paycheck. That's the idea, especially if somebody's in that residential wants to go over to commercial, that they've got to think bigger than I'm just going to do that one multifamily deal and cash that big fat check. It's more of how am I going to bring value to the market, and consistently, I think you talked about with discipline, bring that to the market and really create that authority in that local space with that hyper focus on being really hyper local and picking that niche and being focused on that niche, whether it's multifamily, industrial, or single tenant, net leases. And I think that is I think that's really important. And I think, closing off with the idea that you're really building a business, and the business, well, systems and models are the framework for success. The who goes into those systems and models is what's really going to propel you to the heights that you're really looking to take the business to, or that you're going to continue to struggle with.
It's a beautiful business. You can make a lot of money at a very young age. I've got agents here that are in their mid and early 20s that by the time they get to their mid 30s, they're going to be on easy street as long as everything stays the way it's going now.
Mhm.
Obviously, things aren't going to change, but they're going to be doing very well at a very young age. And it's because they're doing all the right things.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was so excited about having you on the podcast was I went to your Instagram, and I think your Instagram is a really good page for people who are thinking about commercial, because you pop on these situations that people just wouldn't think of and say, oh, this is a situation that just happened, or, I was just thinking about this situation that happened at this other point before, and really give the value, I think, to people. And so, if you're listening to this podcast and thinking you really want to learn more about commercial real estate, I highly suggest look up Joe Killinger on Instagram. He's super easy to find. And, obviously with his commercial brokers international business, you definitely are an authority in the space, and you really true do give back to the industry. And I think that's very noble. And I think that makes better agents, and better agents makes a better market, which makes it better for
Yeah, we've got an incredible industry, and I just want to keep giving it back to what it's helped me be. I've been pretty fortunate in it. So, when we started, there was no mentoring, and everybody back then thought that, oh, I'm not going to build my own competition,
Yeah.
and look how it's changed. So very thankful, and we just decided when they had the opportunity that we would do everything we can to give back, and that's what this joekillinger.co is about, is really putting documents and recommended reading and tools and learning, plenty of stuff to check out on that website.
That's amazing.
Everything's
Well,
free.
Joe, it's the best way. You're giving back. That's why I say you do a great job of giving to the industry. So, Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure, man, having you on. And I think you can certainly teach so much in this space. Definitely, with that amount of seasoning, there's a lot of growth that people have by just having you in their wheelhouse. And I think, people truly are the sum of the 5 people they spend the most amount of time with. And having the opportunity to share that time with you really has helped me. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. I very much appreciate it.
All right. And guys, this is the money. This is the mindset. This is the mentoring podcast. We'll see you on the next one.